Hi, this is Jacek, and in this PHP video, tutorial video, I'm going to be showing you a bit of a problem with file uploads and how to validate a file upload. So the problem is that if you have a file input form like this one here that we'll be using to demonstrate this, and you don't validate the file that is uploaded, it opens up a sort of very easy vulnerability for people to like upload PHP files, for example. So just to demonstrate this problem, I'll just show you that now. So if we hit browse to upload a new file, and we just pick an image like that one and hit upload, we get presented with this link for view image. If we I'll just middle click it to get it in a new tab, you can see we get this image. That's all fine, no problems there. And what's actually happened is that we've got this PHP script here, upload.php. That was the page that I had open a minute ago, and it's taken our file and it's placed it inside this files folder. And you can see here, well, there's one that I was testing with just a moment ago, and we see this one that we've just uploaded. So the problem is that there's no validation on the file. So say if someone were to just do this, hit browse, and I've got a file here to test with, phpinfo.php, hit upload, the image does upload, and you can see that the link at the bottom links to files/phpinfo. If I just middle click that, you see we get this PHP info page. And this is actually a PHP code that's been processed, and this is like the sort of most serious of problems, really, because this allows people to like upload a script that would just completely delete your entire site, and also essentially what they can do is execute any code that they like, which means they can pretty much do anything they want. Luckily it's quite an easy thing to fix as well, so let's just close this and then I'll get on with showing you how to fix it. So what we want to do is make sure that whatever the user uploads can't be processed as PHP. So if we go to our upload.php file, which is this script here that we just used to demonstrate, what we need to do is do a few checks after we've made sure that the user has uploaded a file. So what we're doing here is checking to see essentially if the form has been submitted, and then we're just straight away moving the file to a new location with its current name. So what we can do sort of to prevent bad stuff happening is check the file extension, and this is sort of the bare minimum of checks that you need to do, but as long as you don't have any other vulnerabilities, which I will get to in a moment, on your site, this will prevent any problems. So by checking the file extension, so say if someone were to upload an image like mypicture.png, that would be fine because it ends in .png. But if they uploaded something ended in .php, that would be disallowed. And we're going to do this by creating a whitelist of file extensions that are allowed. I'm just going to have the big four: JPEG, JPEG spelt wrong, GIF, and PNG. So let's do that now. Once we've verified that the user has uploaded a file, we're going to define this array of allowed usernames. Allowed file extensions. So let's define a new array. We'll just call this variable allowed ext, for short for extensions. This is going to be equal to a new array, and the contents of this array are going to be JPEG, JPEG again, PNG, oops, and GIF or GIF. So these are like the four file extensions that would be used for images. Obviously, depending on what your file upload form is for, you will obviously need to change this. So if you want to allow videos, you could add like a list of video formats, or .txt for example, .doc for like Office documents, Word documents. So yeah. Now the next thing we need to do, that we know the list of allowed extensions, is we need to determine the extension that was actually uploaded, and we get that from the file name, because this is the the actual name of the file that was selected. So we can get the extension from that. So we'll define a new variable just under that called ext, short for extension again, and this can be equal to substring, because we want to get a portion of a string. The string we want to work with to get a portion of is the file name, which is in the files array under upload ad, name, which is the file name, and then we want to get the sort of everything after the last dot. because that will be the file extension. Just by definition, that's what a file extension is. So we can use the str_r_pos function, which tells you where a string is from the end. So it'll start at the very end of the string, work backwards until it gets to a dot. When it finds one, it'll tell you that position from the start, not from the end. So string str_pos, I'm not sure how you're supposed to say that, str_pos. So then I think, actually I'm not sure, hopefully the first parameter is the thing you're looking for, and the second one is the actual string, which again is the file name. So files upload name, and then we want that to be negative because we're going from the end. Oh no, hang on, no we don't, sorry, ignore that. So this string position function returns the position, like I said, from the start. So say if the whole string was 10 characters long and it ended in .jpg, this function would return 7 or 6. I think it'd be 7. So it'd return from the left, not from the right, even though it works from the right. Anyway, the next parameter we can omit for the substring function because we want the entire end of the string. So without the final parameter, it will just go up to the end, essentially. So what we can do just to test this is add an echo ext, and hopefully this will work. So let's see. Let's just reload this page. We can hit resend to re-upload the file, and you can see we get phpinfo.php, which is actually quite wrong. So that's possible I've got these the wrong way around, and what it actually is doing is looking for the file name in this dot. So let's just try randomly swapping these and seeing if it works. Hit reload again, and you see we get .php, which is an improvement. And we also need to add one because it includes the dot, which is what I was going to mention next anyway. So let's add one and hit reload, and you can see now we have just PHP, which is just a file extension. So we just hit browse again, and this time we'll pick an image like so and hit upload. You can see now we get PNG. So going back to our code, we can add a check for this before we upload the file. So just before the move uploaded files line, we can just do if in array ext allowed exts. Oops. And what that will do is check if the first parameter is in the second parameter. So the second parameter is an array and the first parameter is a string, so all working. Now there is one other slight problem I haven't really mentioned yet. If someone uploads a file with a capital file extension, this will disallow that. So what we can do is, just to get around that problem, is add a str_to_lower function around the sort of file extension. So this line is becoming slightly overcomplicated, but it's just unfortunate that it kind of has to be like that, really. It's not too bad. So now we're making sure that the file extension is lowercase by putting it through this string_to_lower function, and that will mean that even if someone uploads a file with a capital file extension, it'll still sort of allow them to. It'll only check the characters and not the case, essentially. So if we do this now, let's go back to our page and click this. If we go to browse, pick an image. Oh, actually, let's just delete all the files first because they'll be sort of building up now. So let's delete those, and so let's hit upload on that, and then let's go back to our files folder and hit reload. You can see we get this image. Now if we upload a .php file, it should not allow us to upload it. So click upload and go to our files folder, hit reload, and you can see that no file has appeared. Obviously this message is still here, so what we're going to do instead of this method here, we're going to use the errors array method. So here now, once we've found out that the user has uploaded a file, and before we define, well, in this variable defining section, we're also going to define an errors array. So this is going to be, by default, it's going to be an empty array. I'm just going to call it errors. I'm going to put this equal to an empty array, like so. And then instead of just checking here and then moving the file, what we're going to do is do this check here, just like separately. So just move that like that. And then we want to check if this is false, which means that the check has failed, obviously. And if it has failed, that means that they've picked an invalid file, and then we're going to add something to the errors array. And what we're going to be adding is, you can only upload images, so that they know what's happened. And then obviously now this is just going to happen anyway, so we need to add a check here to see if the errors array is empty. So we'll do if empty errors array, because if it is empty, that means the error hasn't happened. Now the reason we do this is it's not really that clear in this example, but you may want to add some more checks. For example, we could check the file size, so we could do if files upload size is greater than a kilobyte. That's a bit more, some bytes. You have to work that out when you do it properly. So if the file size is greater than some predefined limit, we add something else to the errors array. And this is equal to the file was too big. So then that makes it a bit more clear why we use the errors array, because otherwise you'd have to do like if, else if, else if, else if. Anyway, to actually display those errors, we do that down here. So where we have here a check for is set files upload name, what we're going to do is replace this with a check for is set errors, just because it's shorter, really. Because the errors array is only set if they have uploaded the file, if they've picked a file. So if it is set, we do another check to see if it's empty again. So if empty errors, like so. So if the errors array is empty, we can show the sort of success message. Otherwise, so else, we can show the errors in the errors array, which we do by just using a for each loop. So for each errors as error, echo error, which obviously at the moment won't be that clear because well, that'll be sort of all on the same line, but that's the principle of it anyway. So let's just test this to make sure that it works. We hit browse and pick a PHP file and hit upload. You can see we get this message telling us that we can only upload images. If we hit browse again, pick an image, we'll get a message saying the file was too big because I set the limit quite low. If we just increase the file size limit a little to something that's probably quite massive and pick another image, hit upload, you can see we get this view image link which links to the file we picked. So that is effectively the success message. So that's basically it for file uploads, and I did say I'd mention the other problem. If someone were to rename a PHP file, so say if we went to our well, say if I'll just do this on my other screen. So say if we renamed the PHP file that we were uploading to what you'll see now, which is phpinfo.jpg, and we upload this, it will work because JPEG is one of the valid extensions. But if we view the image, you see we get this message saying the image, the URL, could not be displayed because it contains errors. This is just my browser saying that the file that has been served isn't an image, which is obvious because it didn't contain any image data, it just contained a small amount of PHP code. The server won't actually process this as PHP, but it could if you were to be able to include it in some way. So going back to the include vulnerability video, if someone was able to manipulate a sort of template system or something and was able to include a random file, then they would be able to include this image and that would be executed because PHP doesn't check the extension when you do an include. So yeah, that's just something to be careful of, but for the purposes of just file uploads, just checking the extension is basically fine. That's all you need to do to be secure in terms of file uploads. Okay, so thanks for watching and hopefully this was useful.